Hi, everyone. In Lesson 9, we're going to talk about measures of variation or spread. How spread out is the data? Before we talked about measures of center or a representative measure for data, quantitative data, now we're going to talk about measures of spread. In fact, there are 4 measures of spread that we'll discuss. One of them is fairly straightforward. Let's say that we have a list of 100 test scores. How would you measure the spread of these scores if you had maybe 15 seconds without a calculator? Well, you might try to find the highest score, the max score. Someone did ace the test, assuming this was out of 100 points. I hope it's out of 100 points, not 1,000 points. And then look for the lowest score, the min score, the 13 over here, 13 points, and then take their difference. 100 minus 13 is 87 points. That's called the range, perhaps the simplest measure. But think about some potential drawbacks to that measure. All right, now let's make things easier. Let's go from 100 test scores to 5. Okay, so let's go all the way down here. So the 5 students in a class take a test. Their scores in points are as follows. This is the same data set as before. 80 points, 76 points, 100 points, 83 points, and another 100 points. How can we find a single number that tells us how spread out the scores are? A measure of spread or variation. Now we're going to look at 4 possibilities for measuring the spread or variation of a quantitative data set, such as this. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that all 4 measures are going to be non-negative in value. So if I ask you to calculate one of these measures, if you get a negative number, you know you messed up. All these measures of spread or variation will be non-negative. And the only way it could be 0 is when what happens? When is the only situation when the measure of spread or variation would be 0? If all 5 test scores are the same. For example, if all 5 students score an 80. Hopefully it wasn't because of cheating, but if all 5 test scores are the same, then our measure for spread or variation will be 0. Otherwise, these measures will all be positive. All right. Again, the most straightforward measure for spread or variation is the range, which is calculated by taking max minus min. The highest value you see in the data set minus the lowest value you see in the data set. So in example 1, all right, we see that the maximum, the highest score in the data set is 100 points. There's a tie, in fact. And the lowest score that we see is 76 points. That's going to be the min score. Maybe not the minimum possible. That's 0 points, but this is the minimum score we see in the data set. That's what we mean by the min. And remember, don't just take the leftmost value because you feel like it. You would only do that if the data values were sorted from lowest to highest. Here, this data set is not sorted. All right, so 100 minus 76 is 24 points. That's the range for this data set. 24 points. That's what separates the highest score from the lowest score that we see. So a pro to this is that it's very straightforward. It's very quick and easy, assuming that you can find these scores, or at least have Excel figure these out for you. I showed you the max and min functions. And in fact, I can show you it on an Excel spreadsheet. All right. So, okay, let's remember, how do you find the max score? All right, well, equals max, parentheses, A2 colon A6, 100 points. How do you find the min? Equals min, A2 colon A6. All right, so those would be the commands. Command here would be max, A2 colon A6. Command here would be equals min, A2 colon A6. And the range would be the difference, A12 minus A13. Or do in one fell swoop equals max, A2 colon A6 minus min A2 colon A6. All right, 24 points. All right, so the pro is that the range is quick and easy to find, assuming that you or Excel can find the max and min pretty quickly. I realize that without a computer, by staring at this, it might take you a while to find the min at least. The max you can find pretty quickly. It might take a while to figure out the 13 points is the min. All right. So pro, quick and easy to find, and also it seems like a natural measure. But what is a key con? The range is extremely sensitive to what? It's extremely sensitive to outliers. So for example, if you have a physics class with the ghost of Albert Einstein and Bart Simpson, then the range might always be 100 points. Okay, so what are some other measures of spread? The variance, which we'll abbreviate VAR. The standard deviation, which is always the square root of the variance. And this is the most commonly used measure of spread. We find it most often in formulas, but it takes a while to compute by hand. And also the interquartile range, the IQR, which we'll discuss later on in a later lesson. Okay, so next up, we're going to talk about notations for variance and standard deviation. And it depends if you're dealing with a population data set or a sample data set. Next time.